Hi there everyone. There's nothing nicer than on an English winter's day, sitting in a chair, reading an old book. And today, Keith here at the Royal Society has 3 chairs and 3 books spanning the centuries that are going to knock our socks off. Isn't that right, Keith?
They're really good chairs, these ones, and 1 per century, which is pretty good going.
Let's start at the beginning, a very good place to start.
And this one has a helpful date carved onto it.
1691, and in the middle here we have RS, that if you are like me, you would assume stands for Royal Society.
Not quite, no. It stands for Robert Southwell. So Robert Southwell is one of the presidents of the Royal Society, and this chair was his. This is more likely to be one of the house chairs in Robert Southwell's home.
So Keith, if this was from his house and not Royal Society property, why is it here in your collection?
The Royal Society bought it at auction in 1935 because of the Presidential Association.
Okay. Keith has organised a brief sitting for me, and you may notice already on the chair, as if it was planned in advance, Keith has placed a book.
From 1691.
From 1691.
So as you are sitting on your chair, as an eminent scientist of the period, this is what you might have been reading.
Let me read something that has been recently published. How about Experiment Philosophy Boyle? Boyle.
Robert Boyle, yes. You'll see that the title is there. So this is Experiments and Observations Physicae. So this is physical observations relating to natural philosophy in an experimental way, to which is added a small collection of strange reports. And you can see this book was actually presented by Boyle to the Royal Society. So
among these strange little stories, Keith has chosen relation number 6, an inquisitive person that, having gone through his studies in the university, travelled through diverse countries to make himself the more fit for the profession of physic, answered me that, having resided for some time in Prussia, he had more than once or twice observed that the fishermen, in breaking the ice of long frozen places and taking out thence considerable masses of ice, did several times find in them swallows, as in the bird.
As in the bird, yeah.
And he further answered me that when these lumps or masses of ice came to be thawed, the swallows that lay as dead before would revive and perhaps fly about the room, but did not long survive their recovery. Wow, so they're saying they were finding all these frozen birds in the ice.
Yep, swallow lollipops. They had no idea of migration of birds, so the fact that they might be off to Africa was implausible.
Right.
But the fact that they might be under ice in the village pond, a sensible explanation.
So they thought this was the smoking gun as to where birds went during the winter. They were frozen in ice.
Yep, that's right.
Okay, well that's one chair.
Yep.
Shall we move forward 100 years into the next century? What have we here, Keith?
Here we have an 18th century chair. This was apparently given to the Royal Society by Sir Joseph Banks.
Joseph Banks, one of my favourites.
President of the Royal Society, of course.
Oh wow, this is so beautiful.
And quite commodious as well for your 18th century gentlemanly bottom. Probably had a bit of venison and a few clarets, so it's a good sized chair.
I don't know what to say. All right, here we go. I will sit very gently in this gorgeous chair. Joseph Banks may have sat in this chair.
He may have, yeah.
Probably not on this cloth, I imagine. This looks too new.
No, that's been reupholstered, yeah.
Okay. My gentlemanly bottom is enjoying it very muchly.
Excellent. Let's hop to 1791, and this is Thomas Bewick's Quadrupeds.
I don't know who this Bewick character is.
If you're from the northeast, you should know Thomas Bewick. I'm from the northeast, of course. So
yes, we know you're from the northeast.
So he's the premier woodcut artist of that period. He does wonderful illustrations for books. Here we have the 4-footed animals from 1791. He's famous for doing these little vignettes, and quite often there's lots of things going on in the background, so they are very beautiful things.
A giraffe?
A giraffe.
I don't think he'd ever seen a giraffe.
Maybe not. Maybe he'd seen a picture of one once.
It says the giraffe or camel leopard.
That's the old name for giraffe.
They used to be called camel leopards.
Yeah. It looks like half a camel and half a leopard. So it's spotted and it has a hump.
Good point. It completely does. Let me skip forward to the one that you've chosen. Oh, look at this. Keith is aware that I have, and I am a big fan of the greyhound, and he has found me a greyhound. Mr. Buffon supposes to be the Irish greyhound rendered thinner and more delicate by the difference of climate and culture.
And you can see in the background there's some racing going on.
Oh yeah, they're running.
Is it hair coursing?
Oh yeah, with all those little details in the background.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Now, there's an interesting one. The Old English Hound. Now, if you look at the Royal Society's coat of arms, the original coat of arms, that's pretty much the dog you'll see on it. It's called a Talbot. Nice little Royal Society association there.
Shall we skip forward another 100 years to another chair? All right, Keith, what do we got here? This looks nice and cozy as well. What's this chair?
Well, this is actually my favourite chair in the Royal Society. This is the most comfortable chair in the Royal Society. So it's a Victorian chair. This would have been in Burlington House, where the Royal Society was at that period. You may not want to get out of this one.
Okay.
But we do have pictures of this in Burlington House, or a chair very much like it, where Lord Kelvin is sitting in it. Presumably they would have had a set of these things, but this could easily have been the right one.
I could be in the same chair as Lord Kelvin.
Yeah. So I hope you're thinking great thoughts.
I'm thinking, which book has Keith got for me this time?
From 1891, so we're 100 years on. I know you like a bit of astronomy, so I chose Sir Robert Boyle, who's a popular astronomy writer of this period.
The Cause of an Ice Age. He's come to the conclusion that it's perturbations of the Earth's orbit, but then he drops his conclusion in here, which is very interesting. The mass of the Earth is so enormous that it requires a correspondingly gigantic force to produce an appreciable change in its motion. And he puts this down to the influence of Jupiter and Venus. It will therefore be seen that these planets are largely responsible for the production of the ice ages. I think modern astronomy would probably disagree with this conclusion.
They would disagree with that conclusion.
But there we go. He had a stab at it.
He did, yeah. He's thinking big, which is good, as astronomers do.
Yeah.
And just the sort of popular reading a Victorian gentleman would have enjoyed if he was interested in a bit of science.
It is nice, Keith. It is nice.
Yeah.
It's got just the right amount of cushy sponginess.
I could see that in the Brady home.
I would put this in my home.
Yeah.
So this was shipped over to India, carted all around the continent to take measurements and then brought back here.
That's right, yeah. Most of the Royal Society's instruments, they're kind of revered museum objects these days, but they've had hard working lives, most of them, and they were loaned out and used by scientists.
Like you, Keith, revered, but you've had a hard working life.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I feel like I should be in a case like this.